Burgess, we are working on the motion that trustee Hayes made. Is,
Yes.
Yes. And Chavez?
Yes.
Hayes?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Williams?
Okay, motion carried. Need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's get,
Adjourn at 7:30 p.m.
okay, let's move to our committee meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll for our committee meeting.
Benson?
Here.
Burgess? Chavez?
Here.
Hayes?
Here.
Myers? Here.
All right. The first item on the agenda is the water project from Robinson Engineers. Sorry. Sir?
I noticed 3 items on item number 2. I can address the second bullet item. It leads into the third. And the second, I'm village manager. I'll include information on that, but I'm not familiar with it, so I don't know if anybody else.
Somebody is here, RCA. Oh,
Excellent.
you want to-
Yeah.
Just take your name for the record, please.
Bud Mason.
You want to go ahead and discuss it? Bud, you want to go ahead? We had Bud here, actually Bud came from recommendation from the Congressman Jackson office. We had him here a couple of weeks ago. I've asked him to come back to give us a little update and where we are, what assistance that this company can assist us with the Lake Michigan Water Project.
Thank you, Mayor. Following up from last visit, we've been doing some researching the project and how it falls under our eligibility. My organization has deemed you guys to be eligible for our free assistance in assisting in the development of this project. I guess to say I may work cheap, but not necessarily either. I'm easy but not cheap. No, it's cheap but not easy. The one thing my funder does ask, and this is through Health, HHS, OCS, Health and Human Services, is we need to have a signed work plan with myself and you guys in the village of what our expectations are. And do you guys have a copy of that? I did not bring one. I'm looking at a copy right here, yes. You guys have anything that looks like that?
Yes.
Okay, this is our work plan. Basically what we want to do is we want to improve the community and environmental health. We are going to be working with water and wastewater utilities that are to get them to sustainability, improve capacity of decision makers to address current and future needs, and water and wastewater utilities that are operated in compliance with federal and state standards. What we've agreed to do is provide project development assistance, perform a needs assessment, and also perform a rate assessment. And basically what we do is we need to sign off from someone in the village. And again, I would like the support of the board. This work plan is dynamic in nature, may be subject to change depending on current situations. During the course of carrying out the work plan, it is provided at no cost to the community and is made possible by funding received from Health and Human Services. So ultimately, it's probably not even, I don't want to say it's not worth the paper it's written on, it's not a legal term, but it is something our funders want to see. It is one of our big requirements. So I've got a plan here, kind of a kickoff of some of the things that we want to work on. I did not bring enough copies. Basically, my plan, the bullet points I want to hit, my action items. Recommend that we make a project team to work with
I didn't know we voted to bring them in on this project, on our water project.
Well, we haven't voted to bring them in. This is pretty certain they are offering to come in for the system project.
Yeah, and that's what the work plan is, sir. You know, we're here offering our services. This is what our work plan shows. I just handed out, you know, the action items. If you're, you know, we're more than willing to work for you. Here's kind of my plan. And, you know, we're gonna help you shoulder the load. But, you know, before I can really proceed much further, you know, we need to make sure that everybody's on board and any questions are, you know, any questions will be answered.
And you saying that this your plan that you bring to this village to help us in our water project will cost the village not a dime?
Correct. Correct. And with the Dunkin' Donuts at the corner, I will bring you a little revenue too. So, again, you know, through our grants, this is the type of assistance, you know, this is the type of project that we do. We're not here to shoulder the whole load. We're here to basically be this committee wing person, you know, as part of the team to help guide the village through.
So on this project team you're looking at to develop a creek, who are you looking beyond? Actually, our engineering firm, actually maybe our law firm or your law firm, and a couple of trustees, and mayor, manager. Who are you looking at?
I think all vested parties. I think all of those. I would even recommend that maybe we get some people from the public involved. You know, again, we don't want to have 100 people on there, but I think we need to have a diversified group with a diversified interest. You know, basically anybody that has a stake in this, they should have some type of representation with this committee.
How large would you say that you were in number, approximately? I mean, I heard you say you don't want a large group, and I agree with that because the larger the group is, then the tends to kind of step on.
I don't want to count myself. I don't think the engineering firm should be counted. Again, we are resources for this committee. I think we'd be looking at 5 to 7 people.
Your last bullet point talks about in securing Lake Michigan allocations. Approximately how long do you foresee that happening?
Again, because we do not have a signed work plan, I've not, totally jumped in researching this. I almost put a little asterisk by that. I think before we begin securing Lake Michigan allocations, there's other hurdles that need to be clear, and that goes back to ultimately the EPA letter and such, is what is the repayability of the village. So that is a mechanism. Sir, you brought, that was the point you kept bringing. I know that is important to this, and that's definitely a hurdle, but that's going to be coming down the line.
You talk about securing financing, you talk about for projects design, construction. Would some of that include also for infrastructure repairs?
What I would like to start is, yes, all of the above. I think we need to really bore down into this preliminary engineering report. We need to prioritize, first off, the needs. My recommendation is let's dig down to bedrock. Okay, let's get through it. Let's get down to hard ground, and let's start building up with this committee. What are the committee's needs? Then we incorporate the engineering report with their different options. Then we go in and we prioritize these needs. It's building blocks, one step after another. We got to start at the beginning and follow the process. As any government funding or any of that issue, it is a process.
I guess my question would be, you talked earlier about the IUPA and coming in and saying, what's our ability to pay back. I guess my question is, how do, and you may not be familiar, but Jim, how does this company reflect the email that he sent out last week with the fact that IUPA said we can't pay back, so we have to give up Lake Michigan water at they recommend us one air share.
The matter's not decided yet. In terms of RCAP's involvement, this is quite honestly the first that I'm aware of their involvement. So I don't know what the time frame is, what the services are. So I mean, you know that better than I at this point.
Mr. Reese.
I have a couple of questions. First question I have, sir, well, not for Robert Engineer, have you ever worked with a project type of, I guess you would call them a consultant? You ever worked with them?
Personally, I haven't. I would have to ask within our company if we have.
We worked with engineering firms before, but we've never worked with problems.
And just something that I just poking around the website, it says that your organization primarily serves communities here in the 2,500 population. So we don't serve any communities here in the 2,500. So that would be.
My second question, if doing your project studies and different aspects of how you're going to come back, I'm sure, with a recommendation to the board of which way we should proceed, correct?
No, I see me working with this committee, supplying this committee with the information, so they then can come to the board with this stuff.
Okay, because and I did have a problem with that. If overwhelmingly the support or the direction at that time is not that we should be water. But I see that you have it says Sauk water quality improvement project. And nothing say with Sauk Village, they wish you water out anything like that. What you're doing is you're trying to, correct me if I'm wrong, you're bringing the best feasible, the most feasible possibility back to the village. Well, with the committee, either they wish to airstrip, but you're bringing it back, and you're gonna have this committee look at different aspects and bring those recommendations back to the board.
Correct. Again, I'm working with the engineer will be working for us. I think, as I explained the last meeting, we're a lot of the boots on the ground. I'm a licensed water, wastewater operator. Again, kind of down the hallway here in the internal workings of the village. Engineer's great, but sometimes we're not here, I'm not here to step on this gentleman or any engineering toes. I'm here to assist the village. I think we still need to do some, discovery on some issues. Great preliminary engineering report.
But now, how often would you, the last question, how often would you be doing meetings? I'm talking about with your project, how often do you
I'd like to think it's going to be fast and furious, here for a while, but maybe this is something, ultimately, we don't want to be holding meetings that only, 2 or 3 of them can show up, so it would be your guys' meetings. I mean,
how often would you like to see the meetings held?
I think there needs to be some weekly updating, and at least at a minimum, a once a month set down with all the players in the room. And I'm not even ruling out at the beginning a once a week set down with the stakeholders that we begin developing our relationships with each other. It's July 3rd, and sir, I drove over 3 hours to get up here. I'm committed to this project. That's whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
I'm still curious. As an engineering firm,
Can't hear you.
I'm an expert in environmental engineering. Why would I need to hire your company to oversee this water connection project? Shouldn't that engineering firm have the capability of overseeing their own connection projects?
I'm a big student of the language. I know I talk with a little twang and kind of have trouble. One of the discussions I have to have with my regional office is what is your definition of a project manager, okay? When we hear project manager, we think of someone with a hard hat, with the plans, with a tape measure, okay? As you see here, I put in here, we're more of a project developer. This engineering firm, and I'm sure that they would, well within their scope to help do this heavy lifting, to get this project off the ground. They've done their heavy lifting with that, okay? What we're here to do is because you guys are eligible for our free assistance, I definitely can do it cheaper for the residents of the village, or of Sauk Village, to help getting your guys' house in order to proceed with this. I mean, that's the advantage. That is the advantage of us. And when you have the experience of getting, of talking to municipal talk, looking at budgets, and again, I'm not taking anything away from the engineers, but I can work a whole lot cheaper on this part of the development project. Can I do this? No, sir. This is the main building block. This is the main thing we're going to be going through left and right and up and down. But there's some processes preceding this that I think we need to make sure that we're doing them correctly. Again, I work for free. We're a humble little program. How I came to RCAP, they approached my board and they were very hesitant. Why have I never heard of this outfit? We're very small in number, limited staff, and we go where the need is greatest. I feel the need here, again, you guys are facing quality, quantity, and also public health concerns. So that puts you guys right up to the top of our list. Most of my communities are facing 2 of those 3. You guys have to try that. And we can take our experience, my background, my education has been in the school of hard knocks, dealing with situations like this. Let's roll up our sleeves, let's put our boots on, and let's get out there and let's start moving this project down the road.
If I'm not mistaken, a few weeks back, or maybe a month back, we already looked at some of these items that he's listed on this sheet of paper we've got on this project. I believe the village manager is involved in doing some delinquent people paying the water bill. But the number of knocks on my report, yes, definitely needs assistance and how I know that. Building collection, we always definitely need help with building collection. Meter reading, I don't think we have a problem with meter reading, but again, you look at that. But I don't really see anything down there that's straightforward for our water stuff. But after tonight's meeting, I imagine there will be a few things changing. But there's definitely some changes coming about. I need a little more information on each area, and I don't think we can get that without the manager present. But I know she has definitely started on the building collection program. I'd just like to see a little more information through the village manager, get back to us on it, see her opinion.
To get back to you on what now?
I know for a fact she has started some on the building and collection stuff. I know for a fact she's working on a program for delinquent. I like for her input before we actually go anywhere with this program. Looks like he's on track, but yet I still like getting the manager.
I'm not sure what she started has to do with bringing him on to give us free advice and information. Whatever she started on, whatever he can bring to the table, may just enhance what she does. Sure. Okay, so I don't understand. It's not like we're going to be paying him. If he just offers some advice and offer free service, I don't know what the heck is about.
Well, one of the things we do is we try to, each community should not have to reinvent the wheel. Sir, with this is a generic form that I tweak a little bit. I go and put the village name at the top. These are the things we go into, whether it be Sauk Village, whether it be Pulaski, Illinois, whether it be Cropsey, Illinois. These are the things we like to look at. And one of the things, one of my marching orders is to trust but verify, okay? I work with the community. When's the last time you raised your rates? We raised them last year. Okay, took it for granted. Well, they raised their rates all right. They only adjusted the minimum amount. They did not adjust, for larger usages, and it ended up being a descending rate ordinance. So again, it's a team effort, team approach, and ultimately you guys are, if you feel uncomfortable with me working or making recommendations, I'm here to offer assistance and work with you, and to bring my experience and expertise to.
I just want to get together and just, there's a lot of things going on out there.
Oh,
You probably know by now, we're checking into things, and I just like for you to get together and all come together on the same page. Instead of starting a whole brand.
Oh,
I don't care if it's free or not free, just that wanting to create a whole entire problem, we're going this way, you go this way, no, we all need to go on top page.
I like the same sheet of music. That's what I like.
That's basically what I'm saying.
What I say with these project developments, I was going to bring it with me, and I forgot. I keep a toolbox with me. I have some tools. One of the items is the toolbox is the Canon WD-40. Because once the gears get turning, they're a little squeaky. We got my duct tape to fix the rates. And more importantly here, I think that we use some baling wire to bind everybody together to keep them pulling in this. They can realize they're pulling in the same direction, and they keep them pulling. I look at this again. I come from a rural background. We're all a hitch of horses. We're in the same hitch. We best be pulling together for your constituents in the village. But I am not here to take over. I'm not here to dominate. I'm not here to tell. I'm here to serve.
On all the same page.
I would have a problem going forward. I think that if anybody wants to work with, not only our attorneys and our engineer, but, board members as well, to figure out what the best direction is. My only concern is, I'm assuming, is when we try next point, how, if it's even something discussing, because based on that. So, like, as far as this specific bullet point, I think that if there's a program that's willing to come in and help us and work with us, obviously we've never gone towards with fishing water before. I think it's something that could hurt. So I have a problem going forward. But, like I said, I do have many questions for you, Jim.
Kind of following up with what Jim said earlier, as far as Lake Michigan, from what I read in the EPA letter, I don't see where it says this project is dead. But what I see is you guys need to go back to the drawing board and you need to fine tune this a little bit before we say either way. As I said in my first meeting, right now where the funding comes, we're not there yet, but whatever funding option we look at, any of them, we're going to look at the repayability. And that is our first step, is showing them that you have the capacity. And I know you do. It just has to be packaged and it has to be shown.
Any other questions? Okay.
We're going to put this on the agenda for vote on next week.
I gave you guys my cards last time. If you have any questions and recommendations. Also, under the RCAP umbrella, we have through the Illinois Association Development Corp. That's another tool as we go down this road. They do housing and economic development. So again, we've got some muscle that we can also help. But right now, priority is getting this project moving.
All right, we'll be in contact with you guys. I'm hoping that we have this thing on the agenda and we're able to.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I guess back to bullet item number 2, which is an update on the Lake Michigan water situation. I'm sure by now you've all read the letter that was in your packets or the So what I did was I did a follow-up phone call to Mr. Roger Ulrich, who's the project manager with the infrastructure financial assurance section from IEPA. Basically, they hold the purse strings for the low interest loan funding. So I just wanted to get some clarification on the comments that were in the letter. So first of all, the infrastructure financial assurance section has the responsibility of dispersing low interest loan money and ensuring that that loan money can be repaid. The potential for repayment is based on affordability guidelines. According to the IEP's calculations, water bills required to repay the low interest loan would be too high for Sauk Village's residents to afford. The IEPA has to assess, they have access to water rate information throughout the state, and few other communities have rates as high as what Sauk Village is proposing. Therefore, the IEPA is very concerned that the residents that refuse to pay their water bills and jeopardize repayment of the low interest loan. The IEPA believes that Sauk Village should be raising their water rates right now to fund the anticipated improvements. And then I started getting into a conversation with Roger about the steps that were taken, because I think there was a hole in the information on what the IEPA knows about the process. And I informed them about we had a binding referendum question, had clear language about the cost impacts, very clear information. There were public meetings, there were presentations, there were mailings. So Roger requested that we send very specifically this information down to the IEPA. We had public meetings on this date and this date, and probably the minutes from those meetings, and the presentations, the literature that was distributed, the mailings, copies of mailings that went out, the exact language of the binding referendum question, and then the results of the vote, what they were. Basically, sending all that down to IEPA in support of the village's position to move forward on the emission water. So that's looking to plug that information gap. I guess the bright side is that IEPA is still continuing to tell me that even though Sauk Village doesn't have an approved plan right now, and they won't until until the response is received from the village and the IEP is satisfied that the village will repay the loan. Once that happens, they'll approve the project plan, and then they will give a ranking for Sauk Village's project, and then hopefully disperse that funding to the village. And the IEPA is still confident that because of Sauk Village predicament that they're in, compliance status with the Attorney General, that funding will be made available. So that's the good news. So the IEPA is requesting a written response to their project plan review letter. We received that back the third week of June. So my goal is to get a response to them relatively quickly so that we can keep the process moving. Now, I've responded to 3 of the 5 comments, but there are 2 comments left that my capacity as engineer I can't respond to. That's got to be the village. So the first is, and these are the comments from the IEPA, please discuss the ability and willingness of Sauk Village residents to assume the necessary water rates and provide a timetable for the initiation of a new rate structure. And then secondly, please reevaluate the treatment alternatives, providing realistic discussion regarding the affordability issue and the financial impact of the various alternatives on the residents who will ultimately be responsible for paying the necessary water rates. The gist of the letter that the IEP sent us, the crux of their concern is that Sauk Village won't be able to afford the rate increase. So they are looking for the village to reassure IEPA, prove to IEPA that, yes, the village is willing to pay these increased water rates. They're fully aware of what the water rate increase will be, and moving forward, there's not going to be a default on this loan that the IEPA might provide us for doing that work. And it needs to be said that the language is also very clear in the letter that the IEPA is good to go with the airstripping option. They think it's within the village's affordability, and but with Lake Michigan water, again, because it's such a dramatic increase, they have concerns with dispersing that funding. So, I guess what I'm hoping to achieve from talking to you tonight is giving you a sense of urgency in responding to the IEPA and asking your help with crafting a response to the IEPA on those two issues. And then finally, on a related note, I got a call from the IDNR hearing officer today, and they want to set up the first hearing for Lake Michigan water allocation on Wednesday, August 22nd at 11 a.m. So I sent out an email to everybody who had responded to me that they wanted to be part of that. Assuming I get everybody's go, and hopefully we'll hold a hearing then.
I had a couple of questions. Looking at the letter that we got, she wrote us. I just want to cover a couple of things in the letter that I was reading. It's got 5 sections basically. The first section, it says that they review all the project plans, and anything that's increased, anything that's a water that's increased 2% or higher of the median household income is considered high risk below repayment. They calculated our numbers for 2.66. The IEPA says that the Michigan water, because of the fact that 2.66 is not the cost effective way to do this. It's not an alternative. Then they go on to say at the end of that we figured the dollars and cents in basically we figured it out in 2011 dollars. We didn't figure it out in 2015 dollars. Between inflation and things like that. So they're estimating the cost based on their numbers, because IEPA not me. They're estimating that, looking at, since most of the construction and everything, the final cost will be in 2015, that the whole Lake Michigan project will exceed over $20 million, which is not what we presented not what we presented to the board. So that's just one point I'd like to pull out. In section 2 of the letter, they talk about the fact that they see that they have an alternative for the project plan is the installation of water and chloride removal facilities, and they go on to say that at a cost of $4.6 million, the fact that this will provide an adequate supply of source water while ensuring compliance with all standards at a much more affordable cost. They suggest going through with this, or at least relooking at that option, because, like I said, it would still give us an adequate amount of drinking water. I skip down to section 4. They talk about the emergency hookup. I know we've talked about this for months. I know that this board, I'm not alone in saying this board has stated we need to see on that. We need to start that. And the village manager kind of said that there's projects that are working. I'm not real sure what that build-up is, but they're suggesting that we get on that immediately. And then section 5, they say that in the project plan it states that the IDNR will only approve Lake Michigan water allocation if the cost of delivering Lake Michigan water is less than the cost of treatment of locally sourced water. We see that it's not. They see that it's not. So they encourage us again to reevaluate the airstrip, because it's a fifth of the cost. And I when the rates increase. And again, I would just like to say that if we would have increased rates based on the numbers we had before the referendum, if we would have, April 1st, increased the rates, this is July. That would have been all of April, all of May, all of June, to get a realistic picture of if our residents could have afforded to pay it. And now this is what you're asking, this is what you're saying IEPA is looking for. They want a realistic picture. We would have had 3 months worth of data, but we didn't. We don't have it. And now we can't give them that because if we had, not, this is just my opinion, if we have anything over a 5% cutoff rate, now, the only thing I can think is it's going to be at least double that. And that's not going to be able to allow us to afford it. That's just my opinion. And I'm glad that you did send out this email to us and didn't give us time to review it. But that's why I said last week, we had to pause on whether or not we were going to have a board meeting. I said that I wanted this item on the agenda. And the very next day, IPA apparently returns. They must have heard me say I wanted to speak this on the meeting because we're faced with this issue. And again, I appreciate everything you've done. I just don't think that Lake Michigan water is in our immediate future. I think we need to look beyond. I think we need to give our residents clean, safe water that they're asking for right now, which we have, but in an adequate supply. Because well, right now we don't have adequate supply. So we need to get that back up before IEPA comes back with any judgments they can place upon us. And I think that's something the board really needs to think about. The fact that we're all on the same page, we allow the residents the opportunity to vote, and that should still be on the back burner. But what's on the front burner right now is to make sure that we have adequate, safe water. And in my opinion, and what I'm reading from this IEPA, and I'm just giving quotes, I'm not subjecting it all. IEPA is saying we need to reevaluate final form because it really is the quickest and safest and cheapest option.
Yeah.
Yes.
On comments for the emergency thing, where are we with the emergency thing now?
Yeah, and just to clarify this, Rosie, I mean, we're working on item 4 right now. So originally we were going to go with the high school connection. That was out the window because the Attorney General. So therefore, IPA is important. This $560,000 that they're stating for the emergency connection, that's an incorrect figure. It's really $2.1 million, big difference. So we are designing this right now with the intention to have this thing built and operational next spring. So just so everybody's clear where the momentum is right here. So, and that being said, unless instructed otherwise, we're moving full force forward with the Lake Michigan allocation process still. So unless I'm given direction otherwise, that's what I'm moving forward on.
I guess the question is that they want us to do number 4 first, before we do anything else. So we would have to do that whether we continue to go with Lake Michigan water or whether this board decides to review the air school process, right? So
What the IEP wants is for the water crisis to be over as soon as possible. Everything else is secondary. So if we can tap in to get Lake Michigan water and get water to the residents by next spring or summer, then they're going to be thrilled with that. And plus, at the end there, they say if local funding is available, great. So, based on what the village manager was saying, that this project is going to be locally funded, and that's in my response to the IEP that it will be locally funded. What we're looking for low-interest loan funding on is for the pump station and reservoirs that will give us a permanent Lake Michigan water connection.
the assumption number 4 you're saying next spring.
Yes.
And if we would be on the chloride option, who would that be?
Well, that might be next summer, next fall, because we started the design process.
I understand.
Before it was kind of like, Lake Michigan water, building this water main down the Sauk Trail, or air stripping. If we start at the same time, we finish at the same time. Well, Well, now we've started with the Lake Michigan water connection, we're ahead, so.
I guess I was just concerned because now we've gone from 400,000 to 2.6, you said?
No, 2.1.
2.1, okay. So now we've gone to 2.1, and I guess my concern is that I wanted to see if we put 2.1 in this because right now that's the quickest option, and IEPA wants us to do the quickest option. So 2.1 in this hand plus the 20 over here.
Not really anymore.
And
And I know that's a little confusing, but it's because of the review processes that we've gone through with IEPA and IDNR. We've actually, IDNR wanted us to come up with more realistic population projections. Originally, we're going with CMAP projections. That was projecting that by the year 2030, we'd have 18,000 residents in Sauk Village, okay? And so that's kind of laughable. So IDNR said, no, give me something realistic. So we went back, we evaluated the village's growth since the institution of the village. And you've got basically a 1% growth rate. We projected that out, we ended up with 12,000 some residents for the year 2030. That backed us off of how much water we needed. That lowered the cost of the infrastructure. So we're actually saving money now. Now, that $2.1 million that we're investing now was part of that $19.7 million originally. So that's why in item 1, they're talking about, we realized that the cost went down from 19.7 million to 19.1 million. That's where that's coming in. We gave the IEP updated information. So it's not going to be on top of it.
okay, so the total cost, which would include the emergency was 19.1.
Correct.
Okay, and allowing the adequate supply, which would be the 2.1 with the South China Heights, that would suffice to start with this project. It could be done by next spring. You're talking about with the 2.1. That would be in addition to or a stepping stone to get Lake Michigan water at a total cost of 19.1.
Correct.
According to your calculations, but according to IEPA, a total cost of over $20 million, but that would include the 2.1. Because they're looking at $2011 versus 2015.
Yeah, that's.
And I mean, I don't know what the question rate is. I have no idea. I'm not speaking to that. I'm just trying to get an overall picture of where IEPA is thinking, including with the Lake Michigan, obtaining that throughout the village, and the emergency put down, a cost of $20 million. Okay. And I appreciate all the information, because I know I've asked the village manager a couple different times where we were in the process. Maybe I just wasn't getting it before. So now I understand where we are, I understand we're working on that, and I'm not thinking that we necessarily stop that. But I just, again, I'd like to hear the board's opinion on this, because it seems to me that IEPA is telling us at 2.66, it's high risk. You need to revisit your options.
I have a question. You stated that we would, that you right now currently working on the allocation for the emergency hookup.
Yes.
Okay. If we get that allocation for the emergency hookup for Lake Michigan water, then the option that was stated here by IEPA for the amount of chloride removed, which would be airstrip, would go out the window, correct?
Well, let's clarify one thing. The IDNR has requested that we don't stipulate trying to get an emergency connection or permanent connection. We are trying to get a connection. Okay. So once we get the allocation, assuming we get the allocation, period. That will allow us to withdraw Lake Michigan water. Now, it's my understanding that the IEPA would at that point say, okay, we're getting Lake Michigan water, cat wells. That's a possibility. Now, if IEPA sees it as an emergency connection, then maybe they allow you to keep your wells in operation. I don't know yet, Derek, to be honest with you.
That's what I'm looking at. Because I'm looking on one hand, the first question, saying that we can't afford or whatever, but they recommend that we go with there because of the cost effect. Now, if we're moving forward, what you're doing right now, with emergency hookup of Lake Michigan water, I know for a fact they won't allow us to see water. So if they're not gonna allow that to happen, so if they're not going to allow that to happen, then once we do get the allocation of the emergency hookup, if we ever use that emergency hookup and have to basically drain our system and introduce Lake Michigan water, I'm just asking, are we able to go back to the well water once we fix the problem that we may have at that emergency time, or once we introduce Lake Michigan water into our system? It's in there, period. I mean, it's emergency until we can make it a permanent, but in other words, we will no longer be able to go back and introduce well water back into our system once we're ready to introduce water.
From an engineering standpoint, there's no reason why you couldn't still have two sources. If you wanted to find this as an emergency connection, then my technical recommendation is once you get that connection, to shut down your wells that have the final fluoride. No, I wouldn't say that. I would say, as long as IEP lets us, I would say keep the wells there, just in case you need them. Because you could still deliver water, but keep your options open. That's what I'm saying. And most communities end up with an emergency connection. If something goes wrong, if this pump station goes down, if these wells go down, they can get Lake Michigan water, and then when they're through with the emergency, shut that down and go back to the wells. Now, as I said a bunch of times before, this is a strange situation because you've got contaminated wells. It's going to be a long-term emergency connection, but once you've got that established, you're going to have adequate pressure and supply. That's the whole point of going with this option. So my recommendation is once you get that, shut down the wells, don't abandon the wells, work towards getting funding for the pump stations and the reservoirs. Once you've got that established, now you've got a permanent connection. At that point, I feel a lot more comfortable with getting abandoning the wells.
I read through the report. Okay. I understand the 2.66 percentage based off of your estimates. I understand that they estimate that this project will be well over $20 million. I think it's something we need to consider. But as I read through everything, we get to point number 4. Emergency hookup is for emergency. That means if our wells exceed the limits, and that's one reason they're saying start the project to get there. So if you exceed your limits, you can shut your well down, and then it's an emergency to turn it on. It's not a means of going to Lake Michigan water. It's an emergency.
Sure.
At the same time, they're saying start that and go with the air stripping project so that you can get your wells down below where they're supposed to be. Now, at the same time, again, we did a mining referendum. I think we need to move forward toward that. But we know that there's timetables that has to take place. We know that there's work that has to be done. And I think realistically, the village should consider, okay, we go continue working on what you're working on. Let's get the emergency water to us once we exceed the limits. In my opinion, we should go ahead and go with the air stripping on the 2 wells. So we keep that limit down. We're still going to have to raise the rates, and again, recommendations from the IPA. Raise the rates, and what we do is we start saving the money and start taking the money or taking the increased funds and start making infrastructure repairs. So that when we go back before the IPA, we can say, okay, our residents have already started seeing an increase in water rates. Okay? We were able to keep our wells down below the limits like you requested. We have an emergency hookup in case they ever exceed it. And we're going to continue moving forward with Lake Michigan water. And we can prove that by and we already know, according to your report, 20% of the infrastructure has to be repaired. We've already started repairing the infrastructure. Now, here's where we have to move forward. And again, anyone you talk to, it's been in the newspaper, it's everywhere, the IEPA, we're looking at a timetable of probably multiple years before we see that Michigan water. So why get to the point where we have to take an emergency hookup? Residents are receiving emergency water if we possibly exceeding, when we can keep those levels below where they're supposed to be. And at the same time, working forward toward getting that Michigan water hookup. Because at this point, we know number one, it's going to exceed what the residents can afford. Number two, we know that they're not going to give us like Michigan water until we make the infrastructure repairs. And at the same time, we're talking about bringing emergency water in, that is going to be, the meter's going to continue running because we still have those infrastructure repairs that need to be made. So I think we need to focus on keeping the current well water we have, but giving them safe water to drink. And at the same time, move forward and get the Michigan water. We promised it. We told them, pass the binding referendum and move forward. But nothing says we're not, and we even said it. You're not going to get Lake Michigan overnight. So what we have to do is we have to make improvements to get toward, and the residents knew water rates were going to increase. And we even told them they probably increased, they probably thought they were going to increase our rate. It's something that this administration has been sitting on their hands about. No one wants to move forward now, they're afraid or what the true rates are going to be. But we need to move forward. If IEPA says that they're willing to give us the funding for the airstripping, let's move forward, get the funding. Let's get the wells so those residents have safe drinking water. Move forward on getting the emergency hookup in place in case something happens that we have to switch over. Again, emergency hookup is what it means to get that Michigan water in here. Emergency hookup is the means in case we exceed the limits that the IEPA says that they're going to allow.
Can I clarify one thing that's important? Is that in my discussions with the IDNR, they wanted that's why they wanted the term emergency kind of dropped off, because emergency to them means you're going to have this connection active for a day or two before you get your other source back on. That's not going to be the case here. So in order to even get permission to get Lake Michigan water for that connection, they're going to want a commitment from the village to do the capital improvement program necessary to repair the infrastructure. So that's got to be, in IDNR's eyes, that's got to be a priority. So everything that you said, I agree with that. That could be a potential plan, but in order to get the Lake Michigan water, I just want to make that clear when we go through this hearing process, the village needs to say we are committed to a capital improvement plan to repair our infrastructure.
So let me ask you this, we're talking about an emergency hookup of Michigan water, okay? You say it won't come in place until probably spring of next year, or it will be in place. If late spring, early summer, we exceed the limits before we get any airstripping on our wells, it would be an emergency. And we had to have Michigan water until we completed the airstripping project. And once we had the airstripping project in place, if we said, no, we're going to need water, emergency water for the next 30 days or whatever, because we are on project, we're on time, and this is going to be finished. So it would be a way of emergency hookup. Again, you're looking at spring of next year. Okay? Again, we keep our fingers crossed and knock on wood, we don't want to go over. But there's nothing that says we can't do two things at once. Or really three things. In my eyes, it's three things. One, emergency hookup. Two, airstripping to continue to keep safe drinking water. And three, continue working on getting Lake Michigan water here the right way. And go through the hearings, go through the process, fix our infrastructure, so that the village residents are not paying more than that 2.66% because we have water just leaking all over the ground and coming out our mains because they continue breaking. Because the water main is probably going to be somewhere where the passing water comes through. They're going to be checking how much water they're receiving. And it's going to be almost impossible for us to check the village residents because if we have a water main break, that means that water's continuing running under the ground.
Let me ask a question. On the emergency hookup, do we have still have to go in and do the outstripping of the well, or before, once we get the emergency hookup, what happened to the wells then? I mean, what happened to our water supply, our current water supply? Or we only just relying on emergency hookup?
Yes. Because, again, as long as we're moving forward with getting a Lake Michigan water allocation, once we get that hookup, whether you want to call it a permanent hookup, emergency hookup, whatever you call it, that's going to be enough to supply all the water that the village needs. And since it's free of vinyl chloride, you guys do what you want. My recommendation is to go with the Lake Michigan water at that point.
So within the emergency hookup, are we going to have enough of the water that we're losing? Are we going to be able to, within the money that we talked about in the emergency hookup, are we going to be able to take care or repair or get those numbers below what the IEPA, the RDs requested?
Well, I mean, that's a very good point, because there's going to be, unless Kevin does just an absolute bang-up job and fixes all the water main leaks in town, the village is going to be billed for more water than the village is going to be billing water users. So there's going to be a deficit there. And it is in the village's highest consideration and interest to go in and repair that as soon as possible.
Jim, what if the other villages got a problem with us using the water as a connection?
Well, that's a step we haven't even talked about
Is
yet.
that any water cost rate that they want?
No, that there will be a negotiation process with Chicago Heights in order to set a water rate. Now, I keep checking in with Chicago Heights and Hammond because they have to agree on the contract first before we can even begin to negotiate with Chicago Heights on what the water rate would be.
No. Just out of curiosity, I know we're not getting any hookups from Chicago, but I know they're in litigation for some of the cities not paying their water bills. And ultimately, if we can't afford to pay our water bill, well, what's going to happen to us? I mean, what's happening in those towns now if they can't pay their water? I thought they were going to get shut off. I know they don't have some that they owe water bills. I mean,
Right now, you have to go to court and probably put on some type of plan or something, but there's no way that you're going to shut a whole town, all of the people that recognize water.
will they put a water restriction at that point?
There's a possibility that may happen, but you cannot shut a town down water, even if our rate goes somehow. That's why we put the emergency plan out in the event that contamination rises before it does, not to shut it down.
Because I know we were gonna, if we had to shut down supply water, would just provide it to the houses. What's to say that the court's gonna make them do that for other towns that can't pay the water?
Well, the court didn't say, when we put the emergency plan in, given that, that was a suggestion that we would, something option that we had available, that was just part of the plan.
But what about the water? Because I know where the connection goes at, we don't have the water, but we don't provide the whole town with water, is that correct?
No, that's not correct.
Or what does that look for then?
The loop is to improve the circulation and the ability of the water to definitely get to all the residents. Should one of the, there's only one water main that crosses through 94. If there's a break in that, then there's a potential for the Lake Michigan water not getting from the west side of the expressway to the east side. So it's insurance.
Okay. Let me go through this.
their figure shows $108.78, correct? For the water bill, average water bill that they figured out, using their figures, all right? That's not including our garbage and our sewer and other things tacked on to that $108. Okay, they also said they don't think the project does not appear to be cost effective at this time. Is that the way you see it too? However, they recommend a couple of things. Keep on the back of your mind though that we have approximately about 810 residents that had paid the bill there. About there's about 33 of them that's 3 months behind. There's another 100 of them that's way over 3 months behind. So that's when I put it there now. Still there, our own residents, right?
I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to say, the water bill, IPA says that a monthly bill is going away, we do a double up. So that bill will be $216.
Okay.
Yeah, at least, well, average.
Around the average, right? Okay.
But
So,
for water only, like you said, everything else, they're saying an average water monthly bill would be 108, not including everything else you said. But I just want to remind that we do a double bill. We've talked about going to a single month. That's another thing that hasn't been discussed. But residents now are used to paying 2 months, so that'd be $216, not 108. I just want to make sure.
right. Thank you. Okay. Then they referred over to a couple other things that they mentioned in item 2 that you could go a couple other ways. I know you mentioned that we already have the emergency plan moving. Could you elaborate just a little bit on what we have done so far on the emergency plan?
Sure. We're in the process of designing that water main down Sauk Trail right now. So
Okay.
what we've done is we've sent out our field crews, they've gone out, they've done a topographical survey all the way down Sauk Trail. We're trying to define what the right-of-way limits are so we know exactly where we can put that water main. And we've done preliminary routing of that water
And that's coming out of Chicago Heights, correct?
connecting with Chicago Heights. Yes.
Okay. State Street, now Sauk Trail. Okay. Then all of a sudden the EPA jumps over and throw at us a plan that was mentioned and 5, which was, you all know, is involved the air stripping stuff. And basically it's the treatment alternative costs approximately $5 million within the loan program. Now they're telling us that the loan, they will probably be able to give us a loan for this one here, but not a loan for the $20 million. That's what I understand and want.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
Okay. And that's the reason we have to come up and guarantee that we're going to be able to pay this loan back before we get started, the $20 million.
Yes.
Okay. They mentioned air stripping, the alternative, way I read it, go ahead and start the air stripping. Several times you told us and we agreed that put in $1 million in the air stripping facility and less than 8 months, maybe a year down the road, we're going to have to rip it out, get rid of it, because we're going to be tied in Chicago water. I know that we have a lot of stuff moving. Basically, you need from us to decide which way we're going to go. And EPA gave us, they recommended us not to go with a $20 million and put the Lake Michigan water in ASAP and go to the alter route temporarily while we work towards getting water. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, the IEP has been very consistent throughout this whole process. I mean, they've always wanted the village to go air stripping.
Yeah.
And remember, I always bring this up with IEPA and the Attorney General. You all voted to move forward with air stripping.
Mhm, right.
And then they said, wait, go back and reevaluate. So we reevaluated it, and that's why we're here today.
Right.
So the direction that, the that we've taken is to go towards Lake Michigan water.
So-
So that's,
The basic hangup we have now is determining where we're going to get $20 million.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. We know we're not going to get any help from IPA. They said we're way out of the boundaries.
Yeah, and
So,
it needs to be said too, if the village wants to say, okay, well, fine, IEPA, we don't need a low interest loan, we'll go it on our own, you're free to do that. I mean, the interest rates will kill you, but
yes.
you could do that.
So, we're pretty much still a third of the way through getting the negotiation, but then I turned around, I heard you say that no, Hammond hasn't committed to it yet. And if Hammond has to say yes, and then if the Heights we're pretty sure the Heights will say yes.
Well, just to be clear, I mean, we've approached both of those entities
Right.
back in 2010. They said, we will provide you with the water at the capacity you need. Now we're even asking for less. And they said, this is what your water rate is going to be approximately. And speaking with Hammond, they said, it's still going to be around that area, plus or minus 10 cents. So I know that, maybe there's some concern that, well, Hammond's raising their rates a lot from what they used to be. That's true. We've taken that into account already.
And is that included in the 19 point?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So basically, you're waiting on us to make the decision, and you will continue to try to get the game plan up with Chicago Heights and Hammond.
Yeah,
But we still have to go to the emergency room. Either way, we have to go to emergency hookup one way or the other.
At this point, I still think that's your best bets. I mean, it's an administrative decision, but until I hear differently, we are proceeding
Right.
as we've been directed.
Well, we had no other choice to do the emergency hookup. I pretty much so spelled out to us.
That's going to be your quickest route to
Right.
getting safe water, yes.
Right.
When do they expect response?
I talked to them about that. They said, well, I didn't get a definite response. So that's my official answer, but I was hoping to get a response by the end of this week so I can keep this moving.
I guess I go back to my original concern is the water plan. They're worried about the ability of residents to pay. There's no definite answer for that. Because, and again, it's independent, I think we need to look at our water structure. But my concern is that you have residents talk about this building, and how we spent $8 million in anticipated funding to pay for this. Now we're talking about possible anticipated funding to pay $20 million for water. And I understand that we went to referendum for it, but even on that day, and I've said it multiple times, on that day talking to residents, oh, it's only going to be a 7-cent increase. No, it's not 7 cents. I thoroughly believe that people were not properly informed, and going in, when you look at Lake Michigan water, yes or no, you vote yes because that's what you want. I think that the only way that that's going to change, and I know we've already had water meetings, but during those water meetings, it was people getting cut off, people not being able to talk, people not being able to give the rates. You guys have, in some fashion, come up with the rates. IEPA, even if we use IEPA's rates, I don't think we should listen to talk about anything else. Present IEPA's rates. In the Sauk talk, on the marquee, on the water bills that go out, have another town hall meeting. These are what IEPA says your bill for Sauk Village will be average $216, regardless of sewer, regardless of garbage. That will be your bill. That's what people need to be presented. That's what I think needs to be on the water bills, to let people know that if you use whatever their rate would be to figure out whatever their average number was, it's equal 108. If you use 54, because I know they go like, you have water bill like 70, you use 70 units. If you use 54 units and your water bill is this much, well, at 60 units, your water bill will be $108.76, I believe is what they said, per month. Since we bill bi-monthly, your water rate would be $107 holy hell walking through this door in meeting rooms. The girls in the front are gonna get it. We're gonna have a water cutoff rate shut off. And if we agree to this, is there a turning point? Can we say no? If we sign all the papers, we sign the contract with Cameron and Condon Heights, and we go through IDNR and we get the lake mission allocation, is there a point that we can come back 2 months afterwards and say, I read this can't work?
I don't know. But in terms of the emergency connection, like I said before, I think that's a discussion that would have to be held. Once you get the permanent connection now, you put the pumps in and all that, that's a different story. It also depends on what your timetable is for raising your rates. I mean, are you gonna raise it up to the $10, 37 cents per thousand, next month? Or are you gonna wait until the permanent construction is installed to do that?
I think that, whatever the adjusted rate is that you guys provided before the election, based on that information that's what you used for the binding question, I think April 1st, those rates should be in place. And we would have had a 3-month realistic view of exactly what percentage of our residents live in Sauk. And we don't have that. I know in 2005, 2006, we raised water rates 5% for 5 years. That was good. That was supposed to go into helping with our infrastructure and things like that. We've had more water main breaks since I've been on this board. That's just because we're goal. I don't think we can go any increments at this point. I think we need to totally go straight at it. This is what the rates are because that's the only way we're going to get a realistic picture. And that's why I asked, what's their time limit and can we back out? Because if we did a 90-day approach, ask them for 90 days, we'll increase it, as of August 1st. We're going to increase these rates. Give us time to get the information out to the residents, put it on the water bills, things like that, and then ask them if they can have 60 days from August 1st. That's 2 cycles of water bills. So then we would, we said that's 90 days and we would cover. I think that there's no way that we can move forward on this unless we have a full cycle, because we only do half and half. A full cycle, a full village paying their water bills, so we can see how many were 10 days late, how many were 30 days late, how many were cut off. The only way.
Well, to your point, I think it's interesting when you bring up the timeline, because if we're looking at what we're asking the IEP to fund, it's the permanent Lake Michigan water infrastructure improvements, which are years away. The emergency connection is being local funded, unless somebody tells me otherwise. So therefore, you have time to respond. I mean, my attitude was, well, let's give them the answers quickly. But if it's a matter of, we can respond back and say, we will come back with more data on water billing rates and timetable, in 6 months. You could do that. Now just realize that the IEP is not going to be in the hopper for lining up to get that funding for that delay of time that you take to prepare the response. So
I can understand that. I don't think they should keep us in line, as it were, to get that funding when we're asking them for it. I just would rather, since we're not sure if there's a back out clause, I think it just makes more sense to give them, we appreciate your comments, we understand your concerns, we don't want to default with IEPA either. Give us time to do the necessary research, we will present you with those numbers. And as far as like you said that the emergency quote unquote is self-funded. We're doing that right now. So it can't be self-funded. The only way it's going to be self-funded is to raise it. So that's another reason. I mean, I feel like I'm saying things over and over and reiterating myself because I've said it for the past 3 months and it hasn't been initiated. And it's something that I don't feel is really addressed. So I'm saying that's not to you. I think it's important for everybody break ties because we can't pay.
Well, again, to reiterate though, in terms of the Lake Michigan allocation process, if we really have that hearing at the end of August, we need a unified approach. Either we're going Lake Michigan water or we're not. So, I mean, if at the end of the day, the village does not want to get Lake Michigan water, then you're spending a lot of money on an emergency connection that's going to be abandoned. Just like I was making the argument that, you know, if you put air strippers in and you go Lake Michigan water, you're spending a lot of money on a Band-Aid. So I would implore you, as a board, to have a clear consensus moving into that allocation hearing. Otherwise, there's no sense in having a hearing. And then all of this needs to be kept in the context of the Attorney General's actions against the village. I mean, we're underdone here. We have to move forward.
Jim and the board, I would like to just make a statement as far as what Trustee Williams said and what the mayor had also said. The mayor had made the statement that they had which they did, had a water, office through the whole campaign of the water, and we had several water meetings, and the people voted to get Lake Michigan water. Now, to go back now and say that your vote doesn't matter, I think that's wrong. They voted to get Lake Michigan water at any cost. It was explained over and over and over again through meetings. Like I said, they had an office up there that was supposed to be a water office where people could come in and ask questions. We had, I think, 4 or 5 meetings on water. So, and then the vote was taken. The vote was taken. They knew that if we got water, that your water rates would increase. So I believe now, and I think this is what you're asking, to move forward with a rate. We have to set a rate right now. Your recommendation, I think, was $10 a thousand to set. I think as far as going back and forth, having another meeting, people come out. I mean, well, I don't think we're going to rescind the vote. If the people voted and they voted to do something, we have to do that. That's a mandate. You know, we made mistakes. We can't say, oops, I'm sorry now. If they voted for that, they know there was going to be a water rate increase. The longer we wait, the harder it's going to be for you to go to IEPA, because they're going to say, well, they voted back. Because you asked them at the time, could they give us an extension until after the election? And they did that graciously. Now we keep going back to the pivot and how now they think we're playing. We're making a joke out of it. So I say that we should vote on the rate increase ASAP, move forward with it. Those that voted yes, voted for it. Those that didn't, I'm sorry, it's just like anything else. It's an election. You win, you lose, you have to deal with what the cards were dealt. The cards that were dealt stated that the mandate that they want Lake Michigan water. Yes, you're going to get people that are going to come in here and say, I can't afford it. Yes, you're going to get, when we do get Lake Michigan water, where it's going to be allocated at a certain time, especially like right now, because there's a lot of villages right now that have their water allocated. They cannot water in the public ways right now when it's like that. But that's what you were explained. And every resident that came to the meetings had a chance to come, were explained that that's going to happen once you have someone controlling your water. That we don't control the water anymore. They voted for us not to control the water. So to keep going back and forth, having more meetings, and just keep doing this, is going to piss IEPA off. And they're going to say, well, you're playing the game, so obviously you don't want to do this. We're going to go forth with the lawsuit or whatever it is that we have to do. So I say we should try to come up with a number. Present that number, and at that time, immediately start raising those rates according to the number or the dollar amount that we raised, that we came up with to raise the rates. That should be done ASAP, because you have to go back to them and let them know that we started this process
If we're collecting this money, and it should be, the money should be set aside like the garbage collection, set aside in a separate account, no, not borrowing from it, not taking money to pay this or pay that from this. This should be just for that, so when we go to the proper people to borrow money, we can show them that we are in the process of right now collecting X amount of money each and every month from the residents towards the infrastructure, towards the bonds that we have to go out, or the loans we have to get. We have to show them something. Right now, we haven't shown them anything but rhetoric. So it is a hard pill, but it's one that the people had a chance to vote on, and that's why we put it as a referendum. So, and not a man, and not something that the board did. We put it out there for the people to vote for, and they voted for it. Some of them didn't agree with it, some of them did. Obviously, the majority agreed for Lake Michigan, so I said, let's move forward with Lake Michigan. Let's raise the rates under your estimate. I tried to, during that time, put out which I did, put out a letter and have an estimator that was there to plug in your bill and how much it would be based on that rate and try to show the people. So they have plenty of opportunities. So I said, let's move forward instead of going back and forth and having more meetings because, like I stated before, IEP wants action.
I agree. Unfortunately, I think that I'm looking at.
Can't hear you.
We have. I think we need to look at this having a short-term plan and a long-term plan. And in my opinion, the short-term plan is number one, raise rates to where they need to be. During that short-term plan, we go with the emergency hookup and we get that emergency hookup where it needs to be. At the same time, we move with the airstripping. Get the recommendation from the IEPA. That's the short-term. Long-term is repair the infrastructure, have your public hearings, and start construction to bring Lake Michigan water. We know that there's a timeline. Okay, short-term will make us through the next 5 years, in my opinion. Okay, and again, I'm no engineer. But at least the next 4 years, short term, it will fall in there. We start construction either the 4th year from now or 5th year from now, bringing Lake Michigan water here. We're looking at 5 to 6 years before we have Lake Michigan water. It's no secret. It's everything that was talked about during the water referendum question. Residents knew that there was going to be long term. They knew that it was going to be 5+ years for it to get here. But we know that there has to be some type of short-term repair until we get to that point. Again, that's what I look at. Short-term, long-term. Anytime you do any type of plans, you have your short-term, long-term plans. And that's why I think we need to move forward on, again, continue working on the Lake Michigan emergency hookup. But then we need to move forward on getting air stripping and make sure that our wells continue to provide safe drinking water. And once that's in place, we're already started to raise the rates, we can take the additional revenue that we're getting from the rates and fix the infrastructure. We know 20% of it has to be fixed. So in 4 years from now, if we go back to IEPA and said the 20% that had to be repaired, we've already repaired 15%. Now we're down to 5%. Or we've repaired all of it. It's all paid for. The residents have paid to do the infrastructure repairs. Now we're ready to move forward on the Lake Michigan water. Again, during that time, you can do negotiations back and forth with Pam and Chicago Heights. And get the best price we can for the residents. And that's the way I look at it.
My question is, in the emergency plan, what do we do with the well now? I mean, what do we have to do with the well now? We know the emergency plan is just what it is, the emergency plan. Are we still going to use the well? Do we use airstrip? What do we do with the well now?
Right now, once the Lake Michigan connection is made, I mean, once, my opinion, as long as we've got the contract in place, is to utilize that Lake Michigan water once that connection is made. That will get you by chloride free water. I think that's the goal. That's what IEP is looking for. If we do go an airstripping route for the short term, then once those are activated, truthfully, that's a board decision, which you want to do. I mean, it's a financial matter at that point. I mean,
I guess what I'm asking, your recommendation, since you was the head of the department, do we have to go to airstripping now to part of the emergency plan?
as long as we get an allocation for Lake Michigan water, we do not have to get airstripping in place.
I keep hearing airstripping. I thought we were away from airstripping. I just wanted to make sure that we have these wells providing safe water up until water that the citizens can use up until the time the emergency plan is in place. And even after, if we decide to leave them open, we still leave them open.
Well, that's the sticking point, because right now, there's vinyl chloride in water. That's a bad thing. Should not have vinyl chloride in water. That being said, we're not exceeding the maximum contaminant level right now. Therefore, in my opinion, and in my firm's opinion, should still be able to use your wells. The Attorney General is threatening to shut down your wells when you exceed half of the MCL. So that's a whole different variable. The question is whether IEP will fund, whether they'll give the village money to do Lake Michigan water, or they'll give the village money to do the airstripping. It certainly sounds like they give the village money to do the airstripping. That's what's at question here. So we're talking about different routes to achieving the same objective. And the argument can be made, Lake Michigan water, the argument can be made airstripping. Everybody's going to have their own opinions about it, and they certainly cost a different amount. But in terms of what the IEPA is saying, is that they're ready to give you a loan if you go airstripping. Oh, yeah.
But the airstripping will put us within the limits that they want to be in. And they're going to say it's going to be at one-third of the cost.
I don't remember what that is roughly. The interest rate's half. I forget how much that saves over the long run.
But they didn't say they would not give us the money. They only said if we present them with this plan or the answer to the question that they
Absolutely correct, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions? Well, I think we used Jim's recommendation. We would follow his recommendation from the first when we started the project. We know that we went to the referendum. The citizens voted on it. His office company has already started laying the groundwork. I think we can continue to move forward with this. And I think that's why we use the RCAP to assist and give any other assistance to try to provide money and help come up with the funding and grants and things like that. Assist in the project. I think he didn't answer by Friday or something, or whatever. Right. Well, we definitely got to get Mo on here first and hear what he has to say about the rates and what he put together.
Irregardless of whatever, are we going to raise the rate? Because if we're not going to raise the rate, everything is said to the nation.
Right, we know we're going to have to raise the
Okay,
rate.
so that's what we want to know. Are we going to raise the rate and if so, when?
I think it's here I think we ought to give him the opportunity to share what he have before we say, okay, we're gonna put this on the agenda, and why ask him to prepare anything?
Because the reason I'm saying is, man, you just got to say it, man. In order to raise the rate, in order to let it shoot water. Our engineer told us how much it's gonna cost to get it, to let it shoot water. We told the people that if we vote to let it shoot water, the rates are gonna go up. I tried to let them know that it would go to the same figure that the engineers just got to say, but then I was shut down, telling me that, how do I know this and that, and I said, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, fine and that. Now we're back to the same square bracket, doing the same thing, we're going to same thing. And in the meantime, I ain't paid that. That's our IDNR right now, right now, trying to make sure that we're going to do something. So that's what we have our engineers skipping steps pretty, like, different things, going back and telling people that, okay, I'm going to know, sooner or later, this credibility is going to be lost. So, until you do this, that, who else do this? That's what I'm trying to, this is what the engineer was trying to explain, that we have to be firm on something to get it a something. But you're right, okay, we'll listen to what more I have to say, but we still have to take into consideration, we have to do something.
Yeah, not one time, I don't think the board has said that we're not going to use your recommendation. If it come out to be after we hear from what goes on, if the recommendation says 10,000, or if it say 11 or 12, then we're gonna have to use. If it say 10,000, we'll go with your recommendation. I mean, $10, we'll go with your recommendation. We're still, the board asked Mohan to pass a recommendation. I think it's more than right to hear what he say before the board decides, okay, we just want to go with your $10. I think we should give him that right. If we ask him to prepare all of it. I mean, will you leave me right now?
No. Can I ask Mohan a question?
Yeah, I mean, come on, Mohan, will you come on up, please?
Sorry. Mohan, have you prepared water rates?
Peter, water rates, he has some information from various municipalities. Right now, the rates range from $5 to $6 per 1,000 gallons, based on, for example, an average $6 per 1,000 will come to on an average for $15,000 gallon usage will be almost $90 per month. $90 per month. On 15,000 gallons usage.
But I don't think that's an accurate way to put
It's
the rates.
yeah.
Right, because you looked at other municipalities, but we're not trying to just increase rates because we want more money. It's based on the fact that we have to repay a loan. So that's the rates that Robert's Engineering were giving us, based on how much money it was going to cost, bringing it down. That's what. So I don't think that $5 or $6 is it's not apples. It's apples more.
$6 plus whatever the cost for infrastructure development and other stuff.
And I think you're correct, $5 or $6 for the water only.
Water only.
Which does not include the repayment of the loans, which we know there's going to be a $10 billion loan interest loan, and probably a $10 billion high interest loan. And not to include the 20% of infrastructure that has to be repaired.
It is just the cost of the water.
Just the cost of the water.
Nothing else.
Our water rate now.
It's $3.
Okay, so we're talking about going it up another $2 just for water, and then figuring out the other costs.
This village has been sitting on their hands for the last 3 years. And every time we meet, we want to push it off to another meeting. We want to push it off, push it off. There's no decision of this administration. You know what? You've got to make a decision and say, here's where we're going to go. You want to say, go with Jim's recommendation, but when we talk about how much we want to raise the water rates, hold on, we don't go with Jim's recommendation. We want to wait for a little bit, so Jim can go back to IEPA and twiddle his thumbs and try to get them prolonged a little bit longer. The IEPA has been asking for a plan for the last 3 years. This administration has not given a plan, and they continue to sit there and sit on their hands.
Well, I think
You're part of the administration.
So you've been
for the short term, get our water so it's safe to drink. The emergency hookup is for emergencies only. You know, you're bound and determined to get Lake Michigan water here, and you want to take Lake Michigan water from an emergency source that we're going to have to continue to pay Chicago Heights and Hammond, and you want to use an emergency source as a hookup for permanent water.
I'm using the recommendation of the
Use the recommendation from the IEPA.
The engineer,
The IEPA gives recommendations to go forward with the airstripping.
Robinson engineer put the plan together, saying emergency.
And
I put together.
you
You have the same height. You have the same order. You don't have to point your hand.
You're on the
You're out of line.
I've got the floor.
Okay.
I've got the floor. No, you know what? You don't want to do that. I've got the floor. So you hold it.
You just lie all the time.
You are. So bring it to her.
It's a lie.
You know what?
You always, I always have started my order all the way.
So you just wait. I sit there listening to your lies all the time. I've got the floor.
Go ahead with your
All
lie.
right? Yeah, this is not your lies. This is the IEPA letter.
It's not
That
mine.
makes the recommendation. And you know what? You don't want to go with their recommendation. You want to go with Jim's recommendation, which Jim's recommendation is part of the IEPA's recommendation. And we've said, move forward with the emergency hookup. Okay? But the IEPA also says to do the airstripping. Do they or do they not? And the IEPA makes it very clear they will give us the funds to do the airstripping. Yes or no, Jim?
Yes.
Thank you. Don't be afraid of the mayor, because I'm asking you pointed questions, and I'm asking for the truth, okay? So don't be afraid what he's going to do to you, all right? Because I know he likes to threaten. Now, the IEPA is very, very clear that they are not giving us the $20 million to move forward on Lake Michigan water in the very first number one point, because it is not cost effective, and it's going to cost the village residents too much, and we will not be able to get the loan back. Now, they've asked for additional information, but at the same time, we're only getting $10 million from them, and we still have to go get a high interest loan. We don't know what the interest is going to be for an additional $10 million to be able to bring Lake Michigan water in here. Yes or no?
Just to be clear, at the current values, we can only get $7.5 million from the IEPA. It used to be 10, but now they've lowered it.
So it means we have to get 13 million additional funds.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to say, Trustee Hanks, that it does not say in the letter, it implies in the letter that we're not looking favorably upon Lake Michigan water, but it does not say we will not give the
We
money.
do not look favorable, but at the same time, they're saying move forward with point number 4 and point number 5. Point number 4, I got the points right, is use the emergency hookup. In case you exceed those limits, you have water available for your residents. Point number 5, which we will give you the money for, is move forward with the airstripping. Is that what they are, is that not what they're saying?
I believe that's true. Yes.
They're willing, IEPA, to provide this village, and then what I'm saying is, this village board needs to quit sitting on their hands like this mayor, needs to move forward and say, yes, IEPA, give us the money for the airstripping, and residents, we're going to continue. You asked for that money, you asked for that additional water, we're going to move forward, but you know what? It's going to take us a little bit longer than we thought. It's a long-term plan. But you know, at the same time, we're going to make sure you have safe drinking water until we get that Lake Michigan water hookup. All right, is your rates going to be raised? Yes. They're going to be raised because there's things that has to be done prior to receiving that Lake Michigan water. How many times have we got to say it? Infrastructure, 20% as of right now. What's it going to be 4 years from now has to be repaired? The infrastructure is not getting any newer. It's getting older every year. So it's 20% this year. Is that 20%, or is there a possibility that 20% of infrastructure has to be repaired? And will that raise to maybe 21% this year? Maybe 25% the following year? Is there a possibility? Thank you.
Okay. So, hold on. So that with all the yelling from Trustee Haynes.
So we need a point across.
There you go again. Jim, are you in charge of the project, Trustee Haynes? Now, because the village put you, they said, we offered other assistance with it. We didn't want other assistance. We're asking to bring in the Illinois Rural Community Assistance Program. They said if your recommendation, and first of all, anything that on there from IEPA, I don't have any make any recommendation. I haven't made any recommendation to the IEPA, nor have I made any recommendation to Robinson Engineer, only except that I'm in favor of Lake Michigan water. That's all the recommendation that I've made to Robinson Engineer or to none to the IEPA. Because what I say, don't care a hill of me. What I wanted to do and what I support is Lake Michigan water. If the board and the administration saying Robinson Engineer is in charge of it, then we're going with your recommendation. All the screaming that Trustee Hanks is going back, what he's saying is only the recommendation anyway, or just hot air. So what I'm saying to you, we're talking about going to the emergency plan. That's what you had recommended. You've already started with this. You had said that if you're not sure whether or not we need to do aspect. Just because IEPA put it in their letter, does that mean we have to go with aspect? I mean, that's a recommendation, isn't it? Do they say we have to go with aspect?
Well, they're saying that your likelihood of getting low interest loan funding would be much better.
Right. But they did not say that we would not get any money from it if we go to Lake Michigan water.
Correct.
So your recommendation, Mr. Mayor, to
My recommendation is
your
to follow.
recommendation to Robinson Engineering to go for Lake Michigan water, was that as a direction, a recommendation, or a threat that they continue to push Lake Michigan water, which is your agenda?
My recommendation, I'm not paying no attention to this.
That's because you can't answer.
My recommendation to Robinson Engineer, if you're saying that Lake Michigan water is the better plan in your suggestion, and you've always said that, there's no secret about that. We have been here to all of these meetings, all of the meetings that we held for the citizens. It's been their recommendation. They put it on the referendum what it should be. I didn't have nothing to do with that. That was the trustees that put it on there. What it should cost, what it's going to cost the citizens to pass, what their bill is going to be. So it's still passed. Our job is now to make sure that we move to Lake Michigan water using the recommendation of the Robinson Engineer, who the village had put in charge of this project.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, then I think I want on the agenda next Tuesday night the new rates to represent what Robinson Engineering recommended as of next week to be voted on as a motion. Secondly, I want a motion on the floor to represent what the IEPA recommendation and to apply for the loan that they're willing to provide for airstripping. I want both of those on as a motion next Tuesday night. The motion to go along with the new rates that Robinson Engineering recommended. And that's to start immediately. The second thing is also to go with the, to move forward on requesting the loan to the IEPA for the water, for the airstripping.
Jim, let me ask you, before we start moving forward with those type of things, are you comfortable with going with $10 an hour, whatever the increase, and moving forward right now without any other input? Are you comfortable with that? If you are, then it's going to be on the agenda.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, respectfully, I can't answer that question. I do want to clarify this. This is very important. The village has asked us to study this issue since 2009, and we have. The first report that we turned out was for improving the water quality in the village. So we considered water treatment of the groundwater wells, and we considered Lake Michigan water. Lake Michigan water was more cost effective. Therefore, for improving the water, we were recommending Lake Michigan water. Then we went back and we did a comprehensive study after the IEPA asked us to go back. Then we studied water treatment, we studied Lake Michigan water for improved water quality. Lake Michigan water was more cost effective. We also studied vinyl chloride removal. and we came up with the most cost-effective option there. So we had two recommendations. Let's be very clear on that. We had two recommendations. You could go with air stripping, or you could go with Lake Michigan water. And at the end of the day, we left it to the village to make that decision. The mayor and the board decided to let it go to referendum. The voters decided to go with Lake Michigan water. We were directed to move forward with Lake Michigan water. And then the other point I want to make is, please, the rates we came up with are estimates. Okay? We are not rate setters for the village of Sauk Village. Okay? You have staff who does that for you. I mean, we did a pretty good job, I think, in estimating the rates, but at the end of the day, you guys should be doing a full rate study to determine what your rates are going to be. If it's your decision to boost it up to what we estimated the rates would be, I think that gets you in the ballpark, and that gets you what you're looking to accomplish.
That's what I asked for at the very beginning, about 35, 40 minutes ago, but I'm going to yield myself to Trustee Wade.
I think you said we should go with the, when I suggest going the same route that Jim is asking now, let's give it a little study and let somebody else look at it before we just going off and say, yeah, we're going to raise them $10.
Mr. Mayor, we should have did this. We were mandated to do this the next day after the elections, which was 3 months ago. Here we are in July, we're still doing the same posturing. We have to do it. We have to do it. I know it's hard, it's powerful, it's going to cost a lot of people a lot of money and things like that, but this is what was voted on. But we keep posturing, we keep holding off, we keep waiting. He needs an answer. That's why I said 35, 40 minutes ago, I asked that we establish a rate that we can vote on next week so he can go back to IEPA and IDNR and let them know that the board has finally moved in the direction to raise the rates so we can do something. But to keep going, we should have had these studies a long time ago. I'm not going to sit here and do this like we did this budget. I'm not going to sit here and let that keep happening. I'm going to still push that we get this done in a timely manner so our engineers can at least look like they know what they're doing when they go back and start dealing with IEPA and IDNR.
Let me say this, and then I will move forward. If the $10 increase rate, if that's what the board is agreeing.
Mr. Mayor, see there you, but Mr. Mayor, okay, the way you just worded that, sir, the way you just worded that is you're going to say, and I'm just going to say this right now, the way you just worded that is you're going to say, I didn't raise the rates, the board did.
Okay.
That's the way you're saying that right now, look for the board.
Tell me how you want it.
The people mandated that they want Lake Michigan. This is what it will cost. It was recommended, it will cost. It won't say that the board did anything. The board didn't vote. Well, they voted individually, but the board did not vote. You were out there along with a lot of other people advocating for Lake Michigan water. You have it now. That's the price you pay for it. But please, sir, do not go out there and say the board set your rates.
Here's what I want to know for Jim tonight. What do the board recommend then?
What the referendum says, the rates that the referendum said, the people voted on, that's what the increase is.
We're ready to go.
Rosie, I think I said.
Everybody at the table will talk.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good, finally, it's my turn. My only question to you is, I asked you earlier, if you received this information from the FOIA in your packet, I think it'd be a good idea to provide this to IEPA, because it might give them a little bit of insight of our repayment plans. Because if everybody looks in their packet, we had a resident that did 2 separate FOIAs, and I can just read off a couple things. In December 2011, we had 66 residents that were shut off from their water. 12 had extensions. January 2012, 41 and 5. February, 33 and 3. March, 52 and 5. April, 33 and 4. May, 51 and 3. And they gave June as 12 and 10, but stated that June was not a complete month. So those are how many people were shut off on individual months. If you look at the second way, this is your part of your packet that says water don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
If you look at the second part of your report, we've got roughly 3,300 homes in Sauk Village. Our foreclosure rate is somewhere between 300 and 500 homes. I'm getting different numbers. So let's numbers together for a FOIA. And I think that these numbers need to go, and this is something that the board needs to think about. 940 people are at least 1 month behind on their bill. If we triple a water bill, we're done. We are absolutely done. And I agree. The voters did it. So I said before, let's go for it. If we're going to go, let's go with a bang. But we should have went with a bang 3 months ago. The day it was voted on, we should have went with that bang April 1st. I said it before the referendum. I said it. Multiple people on this board have said that. So I say, hey, the latest board, let's go out with a bang now. I think it needs to be on the agenda for next week. I think we need to start it August 1st. It's a definite timeline. Let's start it August 1st. We put it out there. And, we just start getting bulletproof vests and wear them to the meetings because when their bills triple, then it's hey. But I agree with Trustee Hayes and what Trustee Burge is saying. There is absolutely no reason for anybody else to go and do any more research on water rates. As the mayor pointed out, and other people on this board, the voters read a question. The voters took it upon themselves to vote yes or no, based on the information in a question. Those who voted yes, I'm hoping they were intelligent enough to read that question. They've read it. For everybody else who, like me, read the question and did not choose yes, we're all in the same boat. However, it's a realistic picture. I think we need to set out notice as of August 1st, we're raising the rate per the village's decision at the referendum of March 20, 2012, that these rates, we are raising these rates until further notice. Leave it open. That way, if we see that our shut-off rates are triple in 3 months, there's your answer, we can't afford it. Then we send a letter out and and I say, we talked about transparency in government. 3 years ago, we talked about it. The voters who said they wanted it, okay, fine, you said you were going to pay for it. And 54% of the voters said they wanted water, and 75% of the residents can't pay their water bill. Guess what? You lied. Put it out there. Send a flyer to all the homes. We tried. You failed. Guess what? We're done. And that's it. That's what I think. It's a numbers game. It's not who voted yes, who voted no, who supported it, who didn't. It has nothing to do with that. It's numbers. Numbers don't lie unless people are fixing it. And we already put the number out there. Roll with it. It needs to be out there. When I am. I'm sorry. I was there. I think that I agree that it needs to be out there. And I would like, and I don't know when village manager comes back, but I would like whatever projections you have, and whatever can go in our packet, based on the number that was the referendum, I'd like that number to be on the agenda to vote for. I'd like to know how the water department plans on disseminating this information to residents that as of August 1st, our water rates will go up. And I'd also like to know what your plan is of tracking income, extra revenue that comes in, as well as the increase in shut-offs. And just to reiterate, I would like this information to go to IEPA with your response. Because you want us to ask a question of how we're going to pay. The answer is we can't, but I'm not going to tell them that. I would like this lawyer stuff.
Still doesn't answer this question, but you're going to tell me one way EPA. He was he asked us to have, so he wanted a Monday, but guess what? They got a Monday. Now we got it on the agenda for Tuesday. He gets back to Illinois EPA, so I can give you an answer once in a while. That's about as close as we come, correct?
I think that, like what I was saying is, we give them that information that we have from the FOIA. You say that you came to the board meeting, you presented this. We discussed it as a board. The decision was that as of Tuesday, we are going to, the 10th, Tuesday the 10th, we will be voting on a water increase, which is part of the rate we used in the referendum question. And that we will, based on that data, we will be able to further answer your question better. We need to
got to vote. I mean, the referendum, the vote back, all we're doing is ratify. All we're doing is ratify. I'm sorry, go ahead, right. Right, well, I mean, well, people spoke and they wanted to
Raise the rate of grant.
yeah, but I mean, well, all right, okay.
So we have to return to the,
Yeah, we're proud of all the ratifying the vote that was basically. The second one you said you wanted to. But I have a question with that. We take money seriously from IEPA to do airstrip. We gotta pay that back. Whatever it may be, I'm sorry.
4.6.
Okay, 4.6 million. That's for airstrip. That's a loan. I contrary to what someone said, it's a loan to pay back. I only thought on 1%, 2%, we got to pay back. Now, we got still we got legislation water, we got legislation water. I mean, we're gonna have another bill of legislation water, right? I mean, to get the legal.
Yeah, you would have more expenditures.
So in other words, right, so in other words, we're taking the $4 million from IEPA to low interest. $4 million divided over 20 years, or whatever the case, we still got to pay a payment. Low interest or what interest? Then we're going to get another interest from another loan if we can. A big emphasis on if we can. Because we may be locked, what they call debt, income ratio. We may not be able to get another loan. That's what I'm saying. Once we put our eggs in that basket, we go out there and get that. And then we tell them, okay, well, even though our rates are X amount else in the legislature, which I understand is probably what trustee anxious trying to show that we're going to chew on, we're going to have the rates to have money there to go out and secure another loan to finish the project for Lake Michigan Water, which would be the reservoir and the infrastructure changes. And, I'm just wondering, will IEPA penalize us?
Well, understand this is my opinion. This is your best shot at getting Lake Michigan water affordably, to get a low interest loan to get the Lake Michigan water infrastructure paid for. And it will be spurred on by your compliance issue. So that's why you are trying to fix a compliance issue here. So you can either do it Lake Michigan water or air stripping. If you go Lake Michigan water and the IEP agrees with it, then there you go. If you go air stripping, they'll most likely give you the money for it. What are the odds that they'll give you the money to do Lake Michigan water at that point, once it's a non-compliance issue and an aesthetic issue, as they call it? My opinion, not very good.
So if we get within compliance, we have less of a chance of getting a loan from the IEPA.
Yes.
So if we stay out of compliance, we're providing residents with whatever wants to call it unsafe water, which still within limits. But we have a better chance of getting, $7 million for a project that's going to be, according to IEPA, over $20 million. Based on our rating, we could get a loan for $2 million. So we're going to come up with money for another $13 million.
Well, my question is, if we get borrow this money from IEPA, and they get, I'm sorry, they guarantee, you're not borrowing from them, they guarantee this money, and borrow from whatever bank you borrow from, they guarantee that. We go back to that well again. I'm just using that well as going back to that particular instance. We have to put something in the bank, and we, you know, just like anything else, we're gonna borrow $20 million, probably gonna get $2 million down. Something that, and hopefully we'll have that money in there built up in the next few years from the high interest rate. That's the only way I can see us doing that, which would be a good way to do that, if we can go that way, but I'm just wondering, would it jeopardize anything with IEPA as far as getting allocations? Will they say, okay, you, with the airstripping money, you borrow the money for that. Now you want us to allocate you for Lake Michigan water, even though you showed that you're able to pay it back, but you don't really need it because you've already given us the water. That's the thing I'm looking at. Because I don't want to tell the residents one thing, knowing that when it gets down to brass tacks that says, okay, you've already cleaned the water up. Why do you need Lake Michigan water? First thing we said, well, we have a referendum for it, and we raise the money for it. That's nice and dandy, but you've already cleaned the water up. So that's what I'm saying we have to know. Because I believe to keep things above board. I don't want to come back later on, 6 months later, come back and tell you, you know something, we messed up. No. And that's what I'm looking at to find out, can we do that? Once we do this, once we do the airstripping, or we take the money for the airstripping, we go forth with that or whatever, and the water is cleaned up through the process of airstripping, because it will take the contaminants out. Will we qualify for the application? That's what.
Well, what's the question, trustee? Do you want to make sure we take the drinking water from the house and do it in a short period of time with money that we know that the IEPA will give us a loan for?
Okay.
Or do we continue having wells where we know that our contaminant levels will continue to go up if they continue to do what we think it's going to do, and continue giving residents water that some would say it's unsafe, and some would say that they'd rather not drink? I think the important thing is, as a board, number one, we give safe drinking water.
Okay.
And you do that with funds that are available. And at the same time, we said it's a long-term goal. We continue moving forward to get that Lake Michigan water. Well, how do we do that? By raising the rates, we take the additional funds and start fixing that infrastructure. Okay. So that when we go back before the IEPA, when we go back to say, if you want Lake Michigan water, the IDNR, we show them. Here's what we've done in the last couple of years. Okay, yes, our water does meet the limits because we did a short-term fix. And we put this as a short-term fix. Our long-term fix, our long-term goal is what the village residents voted on, Lake Michigan water. I have a hard time listening to people say, we continue to get water we know it has, what is it, chloride? Vinyl chloride. For a continue giving it water with vinyl chloride so that we can try to get 1/3 of the amount of money we need to bring Lake Michigan water here. We know that there's no way we're going to qualify for loans for $13 million. But we're going to continue pushing the issue. And then we're going to go off, we're going to hook up emergency hookup. But you know what, in the long term, we all know in the back of our head that emergency hookup is going to be the main hookup.
Right.
Because this village will never move forward because there's no way the village will get $20 million. So the village residents will be stuck with an emergency hookup, water hookup, for who knows how long. It's in my opinion, number one, is a no-brainer. We're going to give the residents safe drinking water, which we know that the airstripping, if you looked at all the brochures, said it removed, what, 99.9% of vinyl chloride?
95%.
Not 95%, okay, so not over 90%. Removed. With that, we can almost put it on all 3 wells and have enough water to continue running. And with the increased rates, fix our infrastructure, start a savings account so that we can start building money up. Now, and again, long term. Some places we say 5 years is short term. But for us, 5 years, we say 5 years is long term. 5 years we go back before them and say, you know what? Here's what we did, now we want to move forward. And here's what we have. We have this much amount of money in the bank. We fixed our infrastructure, so you don't have to worry about giving us water that's going to fall to the ground.
But my question is this, and this is why I was asking that question. Right now, we're going on the premise that our water is, and we're trying to get this hooked up from the city or from Lake Michigan because our water is unsafe. Once we make it to where it is safe or whatever, like thinking about the program, will we still qualify? Will we still qualify for a hookup from Lake Michigan is what I'm asking.
You can always apply for you.
You're going to apply. Right now, we do qualify.
Yeah, but how long is Hammond and Chicago Heights going to give us emergency hookups? Emergency hookup is emergency hookup.
Well, again, we're applying for a permanent hookup from IDNR, and that's what the contract would be with Chicago Heights also.
Okay.
And there will be a water rate set, and for every 1,000 gallons, Sauk will pay Chicago Heights X amount of dollars.
And right now, we know that we get hooked up, that emergency hookup today, we know that we'll receive less money from the residents than what our bills are going to be.
Yes, that's true.
And where's the village going with that money?
I think if we go back to the statement I stated, the only thing that I think you can tell them is that we're gonna move on, we're gonna increase the rate, give them that information. And I think that all this conversation is just something that's gonna have to happen again, once we get the rate, because we don't know if we can afford it. I agree with giving the right to the people to vote, I agree with that, and they've done that. But let them put their money where their mouth was. That is the only way we can do it. They said they'll pay, based on their agreement to pay, then we can get like Michigan Water. It's like buying a car. You agree, you sign that contract, you agree to buy your car at this rate for this amount of time. You sign that line. If you don't pay your bill, the repo man doesn't go past your house. They say, well, you said you pay. So now we're going to repo your car. Well, guess what? You voted yes. By voting yes, you said you would pay this amount for your Lake Michigan water. If you don't pay it, we're repoing you off. Guess what? Until the village can sustain it, because clearly you can't, until the village can sustain it, we have to put this on the back burner. If you want clean water, we'll give you clean water. Because we've already been told we can get this money without you. So, that's what we want to do. With everything else, there's no point. You don't know anything until the raise the rates.
I suppose you would have something probably in about 2 years. A year or two after the meeting in writing that you would be able to present partial report.
Yes, that's, if you vote on the resolutions that are brought up tonight, then with the understanding that, let's say that the rate is raised, then I will respond, the rate has been raised, it will be effective, whatever, and the village is going to wait to see what the effect of those rates is. And then we will let you know when we know. Am I clear on that direction? Yes. Okay. That's what I will do.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Judy Pastor. As far as the water goes, it was your campaign strategy to say you're going to bring water to Sauk Village, Chicago Water. You convinced people that it wasn't going to cost us anything, and we had money, and these people that are telling you it's going to cost this and that, they don't know what they're talking about. And you convinced them, and they voted yes. Now we're in a dilemma. And it doesn't take Ray Charles. I mean, Ray Charles would see it. If 940 people can't pay their bill now, what are they going to do later? There's a lot of us that are on a fixed income. Today we got our new property tax bill with upped rates. We're going to get a water bill with upped rates. And that's only for the loan. That has nothing to do with the water. So in 2015, when we finally get Chicago Water, you're going to triple our rates again? You're not going to have anybody left in Sauk Village. We don't have the kind of money it takes. And how can anybody sit there, and this is for all of you trustees, we're talking about $20 million. We're talking about owing somebody, the Cook County, over $400,000, almost $500,000. Where are you getting the money from when we don't even have an audit to tell us how bad off we are? And by the balance sheet that I was looking at in comparison to the paperwork that's handed out here, we're in big damn trouble. There's no way anybody's gonna give us a loan, let alone a bond. We don't have the money. And we've got a police department that has squads that aren't functioning. These guys are wearing uniforms with their vests on in 100-degree weather, and it doesn't matter. There's no air conditioning in the squads. Our squads are in such poor shape, it's pathetic. Yet we've got a chief driving all over God's creation on our gas money who doesn't work an 8-hour shift in air conditioning. Nobody's allowed to take their cars home anymore. So why the hell should he? That car is needed on the street. It's not needed outside of Sauk Village. And I think the board needs to think about it, consider it, and take his squad away from it. He doesn't do the police job to start with. Why does he need our car? We've got guys driving around with no air conditioning, bad brakes, a lot of problems with cars. So bad so that the village manager had them take a squad out of the parking lot and hide it in the public works grounds so the public wouldn't see how nasty it looked after the parade.
Stephen Shaw is 41-year resident, and I hate to attach it to Judy's comment there, but do you personally think that Chief Fox is doing a good job?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, how did you know that if he gives his report to the department and says that there was 1,236 calls for service, but doesn't itemize the category or the resolution? You know, how can you know he's doing a good job? You won't see any difference in crime, whether it goes up or down, as a result of his law enforcement. You know, he has to be more accountable than just saying that there were 1,236 more calls for service, and that's it. And then I was reading my water quality report that I got in the mail last week, and there was no fecal matter in the water. That's all I have to say.
Yes, sir.
Ben Shank, 220th Street. Got issues with these bathrooms over there. We pay every month, we pay for cleaning service. These bathrooms are constantly locked for no reason. You gotta walk all the other side of the building. When we open this hall up, open the bathrooms open, or else leave them open. We've got cameras, which is another question. I want to know what happened to our camera, our security system this building has. We should have an answer for that, as to what happened. We need to get that taken care of, because I'm tired of walking the other side of these bathrooms. Open them up, leave them open. This door here, there's a lock on it, you can turn around and open it up and lock it where it's staying open. That way, if there's a commotion out in the hall, we can close the door, still conduct business. And another thing, just about every one of you sitting up there are running for office. You don't want to use the microphones we brought in here. We are here 4 hours to listen to what you got to say. If you don't want to open your mouth and stick a microphone in it, we don't want to hear you talking about running for office. That includes anybody that wants to do that. That's my opinion. But please, use the mic to read what I'm paying for. We're tired of not listening to you.
Why not?
Feinstein, I just want to respond to Ed's comment about why this washroom isn't open. It's really for the safety of our people in the office, because nobody knows who's hiding in the washroom at night. I do want to mention that as far as the water rate is concerned, I know that the information given to the public at the time was not truthful, even though some people, some residents did give the correct information and they were told they were incorrect. I do want to mention one thing that as far as the security of the building, not only does the trustee have to make sure that it's locked, that the washrooms are, no one's in the washroom, lights out, lock these 2 washroom doors, and make sure everyone is out of the building, because some of the residents going out of the building after you lock up, the doors are not secure. They've got to pull the doors shut. So if the trustee locks the door and leaves and there's resident in here, that doesn't mean that it is secure. Because that has happened, because I've been here one time and found the front doors open when they should have been locked. One of the things as far as the I forgot what I was going to say. I'll let it go to next time.
Frankly, 1633, 216.
Right, William, go DC.
First, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Bear, for the parade, everything you had, and everybody you had to help you. But my question is, on last Tuesday night, we had a discussion back here. And I don't know whether you know this or not, Chief, Mayor, but I heard the chief of police call this lady a white bitch. That is not acceptable. That is not acceptable. We have to stop it. We have to stop it. We don't need to talk about stuff like that because it's just not what he's about here. The second thing is that when I listen to the water and things like that, I know myself that some of the people that voted for that water didn't understand what it was going to be costing them when it comes in. And I know it's going to be tough when we come back and find out what the price was. But I think the earlier we get that out, the better off we're going to be. And as far as the other stuff is concerned, I would like to see that it's possible that our meeting is over with around 9 o'clock. Because it's getting on football season, and that's all I got to say.
Let me just comment on the part that you stated that the chief of police made with the comment on allegation or whatever. Let me just say that no, we do not condone those type of comments. And if it did, it is unacceptable. And if the chief made that, I will speak to the chief about that.
That's a good job.
Any other comments? Motion to adjourn. Okay.
We'll meet next Thursday, July 12th, 7 o'clock here at the village office. And I also like to say, and I like to remain, I see this report is gone, but I like to say to Trustee Chavez and Trustee Myers, beautiful job you guys are doing at the parade, organized, and it was hot. So you guys are doing I'm proud of the village. You got that many participants come out for a while, you got that many. And, I'm just glad you came out to be in the parade and they came out and watched. You have a lot to say afterwards that will go with it. And also the memorial service is all good for the parade. And I appreciate Trustee Myers for the class. When you got it, I'm just pretty glad you gave out.
I just wanted to, again, speak about the parade. I thought that it was a really good event. I had a lot of fun. The kids who were riding on the float had a lot of fun. And being right behind your float, Trustee Myers, was a lot of fun. I think they were aiming for me purposely. But it was awesome because it was hot. And but I did like to say that it was a very good event. I was surprised by the size of people, the amount of people that participated in the actual parade route. And I was actually surprised about the amount of people who were on the streets. I didn't think that, the word would have gotten out, but it did. People were there. They were excited about it. And, it reminded me a little bit more of what Sauk Village used to be. And I was really happy to see that. I'm curious to the judging. How does that work? So I think my flow was nice, but it's my opinion. So I was curious to see how the judging went. And one of you guys can speak to that. Oh, that's terrible, because I wrote one, I think. But I think that I also wanted to say that the Public Relations Committee meeting is scheduled for tomorrow as it is a holiday.
You say you're vegan tomorrow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, when we started this parade and everything, we did it for the village of Sauk Village. We wanted someone to bring out all the residents in. And just to let you guys know, I think Robert might agree with me. If I'm not sure, the final figure was right around 678 people we had walking in that parade. We had about 57 vehicles in it, 4 or 5 major floats, and it was a lot of fun. It was fantastic, and that's what it's all about, people coming out, enjoying themselves. And I want to thank each and every one of the residents in this town. Thank you for coming out and having a good time. And on that, Mr. Mayor, I will announce all the winners next Tuesday night. I have a tally here. I have all the sheets, and we'll be surprised. But once again, and I have to apologize, Rosie. My grandson said, I got Rosie good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'd like to echo great parade. I think the residents had a great time. The memorial service was unbelievable. I think it was probably one of the best memorial services I've ever been to, recognizing the Penley family, the amount of veterans that were there, and having the honor guard. Every branch of service, I believe, was recognized. So it was in the plaque. It was very much an asset to the parade and the day. At the time when we're celebrating our independence, give us the opportunity as a village to recognize those who have served, to give us the freedoms we have today. So I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. That was a great service. One thing is, I think someone from the committee needs to stop by and talk to Popeyes. I had the owner, someone told the owner that I was responsible for the parade, and I got cornered. So, I appreciate it. If anything, I apologize for the village, but I think probably best for someone from the committee to go by and talk to the owners. So, go ahead.
What happened was after the color guard and the ROTC and the Boy Scouts got real close up there, we had a couple of cars come flying through the inner. I asked Ezra to section off part of it. We talked to the manager the night before, and we talked to the night manager, which was supposed to relay everything, and we told her we would keep it open until we got cars coming down on top of the kids. And when that happened, I asked Ezra to shut it off. And I did speak to the owner and the day manager briefly. I plan to visit her either tomorrow or the next day and sit down with her and discover. That's the reason it was shut down, sir.
Thank you very much. The other thing is just like to wish all the residents happy 4th. We have approximately 58 more minutes. So hope you all have a happy 4th of July and a happy Independence Day. Thank you.
I had a real busy week last week. That's why I feel tired today. But as you get older, it takes you longer to recover. On the 29th, actually, we went to a boxing match again in Romeoville. Ended up taking our champions from Memphis, Tennessee out there. We had successfully had was 5 wins, 1 loss, but the team is doing pretty good, but the team's gonna take a break for the next 2 months for the coach is tired. But I like to say that Robert, he actually won his match and almost by knockout. The guy was barely standing at the end of the round. My daughter Catherine got a first round KO. You can see it on Facebook. It was that quick. The other little guy, you saw his match that beat the 2 guys in one night. Joe Briggs, he won himself with well, he went all 3 rounds. He really beat the kid every round. The other girl that we had here that was Rachel, she got a 2nd round knockout. Gabby Mejia, her fights went all the way to the end. Split decision. Donnie learned that you shouldn't text at 4 o'clock in the morning with your girlfriend because it does affect your boxing match, or we would have had 6 complete wins. But, you know, you're young, they live and learn, they think they're invincible. And then the next day we had the parade. So you could tell how much it takes a toll on you, but I really appreciate everybody coming out. And I had truly enough volunteers. I gotta say my boxing team actually came out, all their families actually supported and helped with the volunteering. I have beautification committee people out there that came and helped out with volunteering. The dunk tank was a success. I wish I had more, elected officials over there, but I understand some of y'all don't want to get wet. I did end up going in. The wife actually nailed me down. She dropped me in the tank. But I like to say that, and actually that dunk tank, man, it was a big success for the kids. They really loved that thing. But the food was great. I think the turnout was great. I think the heat made it rough on some of the vendors out there, and I understand. And all the participants were fed and given, food and drink for coming out. So they pretty much enjoyed the cooling shelter we made inside the community center. It was set up nice, tables were decorated, chairs. I know the whole Lewis Tower group was in there. But yeah, we had big fans going that we normally use on the community center side to keep the floors dry. Because with the heat, humidity, sometimes it's rough. With that many kids being in the gym, the floor gets sweaty, so we had big fans on the other side. It was blowing extra air to keep them cool. We actually had some continuous movies going on inside the building. That was later on. Actually had a few people come back out for the movie at night, and they stood late. But it was a success. I think we had a lot of fun, and I'd like to give everybody a round of applause who all participated and volunteered and put their time in. And I appreciate everything that you guys have done, your efforts. I have heard nothing but great reviews from citizens saying that how much fun they had and watching a very long parade. They didn't think it was going to be that long, but they were really shocked and stunned on how long the parade was. So I'd like to tip my hat off to Ed, Jeff Morton, and for the food. I'd like to tip my hat off over to Debbie Williams, recruiting them and the vendors. She did a really good job with that, even some last minute ones. So everybody happy 4th of July. Sorry I spoke so long, although I really didn't speak too much tonight. But I wish you guys have a happy 4th of July, and let's go home.
Before we go home, let me just echo a little bit on what everybody else is saying about the parade. I actually was really surprised with the number of entries we had. You guys did a really fantastic job with the overall parade, and especially with the number of participants that we had. So congratulations in coming to Trustee Chavez and Trustee Myers. Of course,